Excited about camp beginning tomorrow. We, I know, did media 10 days ago, and we're anxious to get on the ice tomorrow. Today, the players had their medicals, their fitness testing, the different things with photos, video shots, that type of thing. Really impressed by the fitness level of our team and the commitment that's been shown by our players, particularly over the last 5 weeks coming out of Thanksgiving weekend. You can tell that players are excited about the season and are doing everything possible to be prepared and ready to have a good start to the year. When we did media last time, it was, I believe, hours before the schedule was made available to the media. As I suggested that morning, it's or that day, it's unique in that it's full of double headers the entire year. It's against the same 7 teams all year. I mentioned last time that we spoke how unique I thought that was going to be, and in fact, I'm not so sure that isn't the more unique aspect of the schedule is the fact that you're playing eight games against each of the 7 teams, and that you're playing only 7 teams. So it's going to be a sprint. We're effectively beginning in the second half of the season right now in a lot of respects. So there's going to be a lot of hockey, and it's important to be ready, to be prepared, and that's what training camp will do for our team. So I know the coaches are anxious to get the players on the ice tomorrow with our on-ice sessions, and no different than yourselves. We're all excited to begin and watch our team. A few things before we get to questions. We made 2 more hires with the Silver Knights. Fred Brathwaite, who's a longtime NHL goaltender, has done a lot of work with Hockey Canada as a goalie coach over the years, was a goaltender coach for the New York Islanders a couple of years ago. Fred has been hired to be the goaltending coach for our team in Henderson. Andrew Doty has been hired to be the video coach for the Silver Knights. Andrew comes to us from the Lethbridge Hurricanes of the Western Hockey League. And Dave Rogowski will be the video coach for the Golden Knights. Dave has been our coach in the American League in Chicago the last 3 years, and he'll move into the similar role with the NHL team here this season. So those are my general thoughts as we head into camp. I'd be happy to take questions.
Thanks, Kelly. And just a reminder for any media on the call, if you do have anything, you can hit the raise hand button below at this time. We'll lead off tonight with Justin Emerson from the Las Vegas Sun.
Hi, Kelly. You had mentioned the AHL. I actually had a question about that. Number one, you are, I would imagine, expecting the Silver Knights to play this season, I would assume, but if you could just, I guess, go ahead and confirm that. And number two, have you gotten any clarity on the availability of CHL players when it comes to the AHL? Ordinarily, obviously, a player like Peyton Krebs wouldn't be eligible, but just with everything going on this year, there had been some talk about that.
Yeah, we touched on that one last call, I believe, a little bit. But our intention is to have an American League team this year. I think the framework is in place. I spoke last time about a call that we had on December the 30th, which points to an American League season. We have another call tomorrow with respect to the American Hockey League, so we're hoping for a little more clarity at that time. But our expectation is to for sure have a team, the Henderson team in the American Hockey League with, a schedule that'll be different than ordinary for that league as well, probably more in the range of 40 games, but still a really important function for our team in terms of call-up players, but likely as important or more importantly, player development for our young prospects. Your question with respect to the CHL and the National Hockey League have what's called the CHL-NHL agreement. And in that agreement, any player that's in his 18 or 19-year-old year following being drafted, the player can play in the National Hockey League with the National Hockey League team, or the player must be returned to the CHL to play for his club team there. So 19-year-olds, in the case of Peyton Krebs, Caden Korzak, 19-year-olds are not allowed to play in the American League, is the language in the CHL agreement. Now, I think where there'll be a discussion or perhaps more information to come is depending on the fate of the Canadian Hockey League and their ability to have a season. So right now, the Western League, the Ontario Hockey League, have not played a game this season. They are hopeful to have a reduced schedule, beginning likely in early February, although those dates haven't been shared publicly. So that's a little bit of conjecture on my part. And, if those leagues are able to play, then the CHL agreement I'm expecting would apply as it would ordinarily. If those leagues are not able to play, then I think there'd be a discussion where they would not stand in the way of the players getting the opportunity to have some development this season. So that's a real long-winded answer, but it's important that I'm clear on it, because it may come into play here. And I touched on this when I spoke to you the last time, that both Peyton Krebs and Caden Korzak will come here directly from the World Junior. They'll have a quarantine that they need to go through when they arrive. And at that time, even by then, we may know more about the WHL season. Both those players are WHL players, so I refer to the WHL season, not the CHL season necessarily. So, time will answer some of those questions for us.
Next one for Kelly will go to Ben Goetz from the Las Vegas Review-Journal.
Hey, Kelly, I had another question about the schedule. I mean, you mentioned how unique it is, and another, I guess, unique factor is you guys aren't traveling as much this year, just because, one, it's geographically based, and two, as you mentioned, you're always playing at least 2 games in a row in every location. Yeah, so how do you think that kind of reduced travel is going to affect teams this year?
Well, reduced travel does help, and yet the pace of the schedule is going to be a real challenge for teams. So reduced travel will help us, and the chance to go to a city and play 2 games, I think, is going to be really helpful to that end. And a lot of our trips are going to be 1-hour flights, so that's going to be a real good situation for us. Minnesota, St. Louis would be exceptions, even Colorado. But for the most part, our travel is going to be significantly less than it would be in an ordinary season.
Next question will go to Jesse Granger with The Athletic.
Hey, Kelly, I'm just curious, what are you looking for this week at City National? And does it change because there aren't preseason games? Does this camp need to be a little different? Are there things you need to see because there are no preseason games going into the season?
I don't think camp will be run differently, in any significant manner than what you would expect. It'll be, for those of you on the call that were around for phase 3, our training camp in July prior to going to Edmonton into the bubble, I think you'll see that it's quite similar. So, what we're looking for, I guess, given that there isn't the opportunity to play preseason games, is just the level of execution and just how quickly guys look comfortable, and that's where I really feel the opportunity that we've had with our players for the last 5 weeks puts us in a really good situation for that. So, what I'm expecting tomorrow is for this to look like a group of players that have been on the ice quite a bit and are playing at a high level.
Next, we'll go to David Shane with the Las Vegas Review-Journal.
Hey, Kelly, appreciate the time.
You bet, David.
Just looking ahead a little bit, kind of into the season, what are some of your concerns or maybe the challenges that are going to come with, traveling, being kind of part of the general population as opposed to being in the bubble the way that you guys were in the postseason?
Well, I think that's going to be a tremendous challenge for all NHL teams. And, the protocols, which I touched on last call as well, I believe there's 11 in total, are, going to be incredibly important that we adhere to them to the very best of our ability. You can see from watching or following the NBA and the NFL that COVID is a factor. This is completely different than being in the bubble where we had no positive tests involving, in the early stages, as many as 24 NHL teams. So this will be, really important how the team handles the protocol, and the team that can manage to remain the healthiest is going to have competitive advantage perhaps over those that have a tougher time, and recognizing that, some of this is chance. Clearly that's something that we know 10 months into or 9 months into the pandemic, that it shows up everywhere. So we have to do what we can do to mitigate risk, and we will do that. We've had all kinds of measures taken that are going to help us in that regard. But travel is a prime situation where that can happen, and just the hotels and the eating areas and the locker rooms, and all of those things are going to put some risk into what we do. So I think your question is a good one, because it's going to be we have the Raiders here in town. So just look, I guess, at no further down the road than that one team, some of the challenges that they've had.
Next question will go to Christopher Chapman with Fox Sports Las Vegas.
Yeah, hi, Kelly. Thanks for doing this. Ben had mentioned one of the unique aspects of this season, but one of the other unique aspects is the team will be playing in their first outdoor game in Lake Tahoe. I'm just curious how that came to be, and is there some disappointment that you won't be able to do that in front of your own fans?
Well, I don't think that the NHL has confirmed that yet, Chris. We're hopeful that they will. It would be really exciting for our players and our team, and we can't wait to get back playing in front of our fans, period, to be completely honest, whether that's in a game at T-Mobile where we have the best fan support in the league, or the case you suggest if it does come to fruition, an opportunity to play at Lake Tahoe. But those outdoor games are exciting for players. I don't know, that the venue there would be set up for fans, perhaps. So maybe this is a game that wouldn't have happened in normal times. I'm not sure of all the the discussions and the decision-making process. And again, it's speculated that we'll be part of that. I'm hopeful that is the case. And, as I touched on, the sooner we can play in front of our fans, the better.
Next question for Kelly will come from Chris Matthews with Channel 8 Las Vegas.
Hey, Kelly, how are you today? Appreciate this.
Great, Chris. Thank you.
Just a couple of questions, kind of aside from all this. Earlier, Bill Foley was talking about, just because of all the COVID concerns in California and such, that perhaps T-Mobile Arena would be home to maybe on a temporary basis another NHL team. Any more discussion on it? Have you heard any more on that? And is there any, I guess, second part of the question, any COVID concerns with any of the team members now as you head into camp?
The answer to both questions is easy. No, there's been no discussion about other teams playing out of our facility, and no, we have no COVID issues as we head into training camp.
Next question will go to Steve Karp with Gaming Today.
Hang on, there we go. Hi, Kelly. Happy New Year to you.
Very same to you, Steve.
Is there any competition within training camp that has piqued your interest going in?
That's a good question, and the answer is yes. Of course, there's always different areas of your team that you're really excited to see at camp. For me, the one area of camp that always excites me is growth in young players, and the improvement that young guys show in terms of telling you they're ready for more responsibility on your team, or telling you that they're ready to make your team, or showing you that they may need more time. So that's an area that I always find really interesting. I think with your veteran players, it's some of those things I touched on earlier. Do they look sharp? What's the level of execution? You expect to see a real good energy and excitement, which I'm sure we will. But I love training camp. It's been too long since we've seen our guys on the ice, with the off season being a little bit longer than than usual. So there's a number of areas that are going to be really important here to watch starting tomorrow.
Do a few more here with Kelly. The next one will go to Josh Clipperton, the Canadian Press.
Hey, Kelly, thanks for doing this. I just have two questions. Happy New Year, first of all. Just wondering about the trade market, looking a little further ahead. It's never easy to make trades, but I'm wondering how much more difficult it will be this season of the pandemic. Obviously, there's border restrictions with Canadian teams. There's quarantines in different parts of the U.S. The NHL has isolation. 56-game season, teams might think they're still in it at the deadline. I mean, how tough is it going to be to make moves?
Well, that'll be something to follow, Josh. It's it's like everything else we do right now. It's not what we're used to. So in terms of live viewings as a manager, we're only going to see 7 other teams. So and if you want to see teams in person, you're going to have to put together scouting trips to do so. We don't know the access that our pro scouting staff will have initially to be able to view games in other markets. So that's going to impact teams' abilities to prepare for the trade deadline to some degree as well. And then I think the other thing with it, the trade deadline is on April 12th, I believe, is the trade deadline. There's a lot of things that are going to change between now and then. So I think that, we sure feel that we know the other 30 NHL organizations very well as a staff going into the season. Our focus initially, just has to be on our own team and, seeing how we feel about our own team and what we look like. And that'll be where we put our energies to, in the early stages for sure. And then, as we get into February and March, I mean, we're hopeful there's going to be fans at our games. So, that would also mean that we'll be able to get into other teams' buildings to scout as well as that time comes around.
Next, we'll go to Brian Blessing with the Vegas Hockey Hotline.
Hi, Kelly. Hope you're well. Hey, I'm curious, the World Juniors, you got the semis tomorrow. We're watching, I think, all these teams grow as the tournament goes on. I'm wondering what you think of Krebs, Korczak, and Brasson, and evaluate how they've done in the World Juniors and maybe how their game has grown during the tournament.
Yeah, that's been really interesting for us, Brian. And, a lot of years you find that the World Junior Tournament takes a real step on New Year's Eve as those final round robin games are played within the 2 groupings for determining playoff positions. This year, the way that the 2 pools were, there were some real lopsided games early on, which has happened in the past. But when you go from December 31st to the end of the tournament, there's really great opportunities to watch players, real meaningful games, and real high stakes. Because when you get to that point, if you don't win, you go home. So of our players, Brendan Brasson with the U.S. team. This is a great opportunity for him to be playing in the elite stream. He's a little bit of a later developer. And, I read a comment from their head coach, Nate Lehman, I believe it was yesterday, that he felt Brendan was the most improved player on the team. So I see this being a great experience for Brendan, a real learning opportunity. He's played really well at Michigan prior to going to the World Juniors. So this is going to be a real key stretch for him and his development, which is a big part of what these events are. With the Canadian team, where Caden Korczak and Peyton Krebs play, Peyton has played a really prominent role on the Canadian team. You can tell that he has a tremendous level of trust from his head coach, Andre Tourigny, and has really played well. He's playing right wing, which I guess likely would be his third position. He's a natural center that's a left shot, so you'd think center left wing would be positions that would be more comfortable for him than right wing, but he's played extremely well and is a really, really key guy on that Canadian team. Caden Korczak is in a 7-man rotation where he's been 5, 6, or 7. it was interesting in watching yesterday's game, and I didn't watch it as closely as what I would like to because of some of the things that were going on with respect to preparing for camp. But I did notice in the last 12 minutes of the third period, which I was able to see, that he played a really prominent role. And I think what you like about Caden is size, skating ability, and he plays hard. He's strong. He finishes checks and is not an easy guy to play against. So for Korzak and Krebs, who we drafted 2 drafts ago, I think it's just continued progression of what we saw in both those players when we drafted them and why we drafted them, and we're really, really encouraged with their play.
Next question for Kelly will go to Ken Bolke with Sinbin.Vegas.
Hey, Kelly, I'm wondering if there's been any more discussion on the captain and if you think there's a timeline on when that'll happen or not.
Yeah, sorry, Ken. I think that, as I mentioned the last call, that, organizationally we've, reviewed this each of the three years that we've played and made the decision that we made each time. And I'm comfortable in hindsight that it was the right way to handle it in all 3 situations. This is our 4th season, and I think it's a really good discussion that needs to be had, and we'll likely have more to say about it prior to the regular season beginning. If we're to make that choice or to make that decision, it would be around that time as we prepare for opening night on the 14th of January.
Next, we'll go back to Justin Emerson, the Las Vegas Sun.
Hey, Kelly, just with regard to the salary cap, do you feel that the use of the taxi squad, injured reserve, and all the other options that you have at your disposal are going to be enough to be cap compliant, or do you anticipate a roster move before opening night?
Well, we'll see what happens through camp. First of all, we've got some ground to cover before we submit our roster for opening night. The taxi squad, I think, helps in that it doesn't necessarily offer cap relief, but what it does is it allows you to run with a 20 or a 21 man roster. So your practice quality would still be at a high level because you'll have as many as 6 and as few as 4 taxi squad players on the ice each day. So in terms of having meaningful practices with the right number of players, it's a real benefit that way. And as I touched on when we spoke previously, there's a few different possibilities, and we'll sort through that before the 13th of January.
Next, we'll go to David Shane with the Las Vegas Review-Journal.
Kelly, in one of the 2 of the players' interviews, they had talked about sort of the pressure of expectations and how that's maybe different than especially like the first season. Is there something to that? And as a team, you kind of have to learn how to play with expectations. And is that something for the team going into this year?
I don't think any more, any less than any other year, with the exception of the first one, probably, Dave. But when we went to the Stanley Cup Finals in year 1, which would be, a complete unique set of circumstances, we've had really high expectations going into year 2, going into year 3, and again into year 4. So I don't call that pressure. I call that part of trying to be a real good team. I think our guys are real comfortable with that. They have the same expectations that we do.
Final question today will go to Josh Clipperton with the Canadian Press.
Hey, Kelly. Yeah, just quick follow just on camp and how difficult it is for guys to make an impression, younger guys or guys maybe on the edges when there's no, exhibition games, you're playing against each other. I know guys take practice seriously, but how difficult is it for guys to move the needle in such a short period of time?
Well, all of what you say is true, and it would be offset to some degree by the fact that camp is very small. So, we've got enough time. We've got, the team, the camp broken into 2 groups. There's going to be practices each day for both teams. There's going to be a scrimmage each day. And, and again, we have, good history on everybody coming into camp. So I believe we'll be able to get a really good feel for where our players are at with that. And, it's like so many things. It is what it is, and there's no sense wishing for what was or wishing for what you would like to see. It is what it is, and I think we'll get a really good chance to see everything that we need to see in terms of not only our evaluation of where players are at, but the selections for our team and our roster makeup and what that all looks like. We'll see enough. We'll be fine.